Well, thanks for watching Focus on Africa. I'm Wahiga Mwara. Our continued coverage of the death of Pope Francis continues. But for now, we say goodbye. We'll see you again tomorrow. Keep it BBC.
It's 7 p.m. in Rome. This is the world today on BBC News. The headlines. The funeral for Pope Francis has been confirmed for Saturday. Tomorrow his body will be taken from his private chapel to St. Peter's Basilica. After a procession in the morning, it's here where the public will be able to pay their respects before the service on Saturday. And as Catholics across the globe share their mourning, world leaders from Donald Trump to Volodymyr Zelensky and Prince William confirm they will attend his funeral.
Also coming up on the world today, the cost of Trump's trade war is laid bare. The IMF downgrades US growth by nearly 1%, warning tariffs will hit the world economy.
As President Trump approaches 100 days in office, we're hearing from voters who give us their assessment of his performance to date.
Well, welcome to the Vatican, where it has been confirmed the funeral of Pope Francis will take place on Saturday. The Pope died yesterday at the age of 88 following a stroke and subsequent heart failure. OK, John Allen, it's been really interesting to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us. And I don't know if viewers who are watching this could hear the singing as John was talking, but behind me in the last few minutes, they've started rehearsing for the Rosary service, which I think starts in about 12 minutes time here in St. Peter's Square. So I'm sure we'll be carrying that live here on The World Today a little bit later. A lot of people have arrived here for that special service this evening. I'm going to be back in a few minutes after this short break around the world and across the UK and in the Vatican. This is The World Today on BBC News. Welcome back to the Vatican. The sun is going down. It's getting a bit cold. I've put my jacket on. And as I said earlier, whole groups of people have arrived here. There's going to be a service in a few minutes' time, which is called the Rosary service, which will take place in the square behind me. But in the meantime, let me tell you a bit more about the reaction globally to the death of the Pope. Members of Gaza's Christian community have said they are heartbroken by the death of Pope Francis. Absolutely brilliant, Mark. Thank you very much indeed for sharing those memories with us. And let me just leave you, if I may, with this live shot of St. Peter's Square. Now, we're based up here on a convent overlooking the square, and I can see a group of people already with chairs. They are preparing, as are many people down on the square are, for a special rosary prayer, which will be happening in just a few minutes' time here in the Vatican in Rome. You're watching BBC News.
This is BBC News. I'm Geeta Guru-Murthy with the headlines. The funeral for Pope Francis has been confirmed for Saturday. Tomorrow his body will be taken in procession from his private chapel to St. Peter's Basilica, where he'll lie in state. The New York Stock Exchange is up in early trading after turmoil on the markets yesterday, but the IMF warns that there's more trouble on the horizon for the US economy. More than 20 people are feared dead after gunmen opened fire on tourists in Indian-administered Kashmir. Now, the International Monetary Fund has given a sobering assessment of the global economy, warning that the ongoing uncertainty over President Trump's tariff war will slow growth for many of the world's advanced economies. The IMF, a UN body, has downgraded US growth by nearly 1%. Its quarterly report. Well, that briefing is continuing, and we've also heard from Caroline Levitt that Donald Trump is going to be visiting Saudi Arabia, Qatar and the UAE in May for about 3 days. So we will keep you across the lines that are emerging from Washington, around the world and across the UK. This is The World Today on BBC News. Now, in Indian-administered Kashmir, at least 20 people have been killed and others have been injured after gunmen opened fire on some tourists. Well, this is the biggest attack on civilians for years. Donald Trump has posted online describing the attack as deeply disturbing news and saying the US stands strong with India against terrorism. Thanks so much, Katrina. Let me just leave you with some pictures from Rome, where mourners are gathered in St. Peter's Square for a second evening, saying a rosary prayer for Pope Francis. We will keep you across all the latest around the world here on BBC News. We're back soon.
It's 8 p.m. in the Vatican. This is The World Today with Maryam Moshiri. The funeral for Pope Francis has been confirmed for Saturday. Tomorrow his body will be taken from his private chapel to St. Peter's Basilica. After a procession in the morning, it's here where the public will be able to pay their respects before the service on Saturday. And as Catholics across the globe share their mourning, world leaders from Donald Trump to Volodymyr Zelensky and also Prince William confirm they will attend his funeral.
Here in London, I'm Geeta Guru-Murthy with the rest of today's news, and the cost of Trump's trade war is laid bare. The IMF downgrades US growth by nearly 1%, warning tariffs will hit the world economy. And here, Downing Street says Sir Keir Starmer does not believe a transgender woman is a woman after last week's Supreme Court ruling. We'll have all the latest.
Welcome to the Vatican, where it has been confirmed the funeral of Pope Francis will take place on Saturday morning. The Pope died yesterday at the age of 88 following a stroke and subsequent heart failure. Well, this is St. Peter's Square now. The sun is setting on this beautiful church and basilica, and many people are still flowing into the area. He who enters the conclave, a pope, exits a cardinal. I love that quote. Something to think about over the coming days and weeks. Let's just take you briefly to St. Peter's Square and the live pictures. The sun has really set here. It's not quite dark, but you can see the beautifully lit Basilica of St. Peter's and the continuous flow of people coming to the Basilica to pay their respects, to see the place where the Pope will be lying in state from tomorrow, the place where he will have his funeral on Saturday, but not the place where he'll be buried. He'll be the first Pope in over 100 years not to be interred at St. Peter's Basilica. He has chosen instead to go to the Santa Maria Maggiore Basilica, which he holds very dear to his heart, the place where he goes to pray, or has gone to pray before and after every long journey, and the place he went to pray at after he was taken out of hospital. He was there after that on the 23rd of March after his battle with double pneumonia. But these are the live scenes at St. Peter's Square around the world and across the UK. This is The World Today on BBC News. Well, the Pope was very vocal, wasn't he, about the Israel-Gaza war and about bringing about peace in the Middle East. And it's one of the reasons why his passing will be felt so keenly by Christians in the region. Austin, thank you very much indeed for joining us. And let's just, if we may, end the programme on this beautiful shot of the square and of St. Peter's Basilica. It really is a sight to behold, and as we mentioned earlier, so many people still here and they're expected to flow and continue to flow through St. Peter's Square over the next few days in their hundreds and thousands. You're watching The World Today on BBC News.
This is BBC News. I'm Geeta Guru-Murthy with the headlines. The funeral for Pope Francis has been confirmed for Saturday. Tomorrow, his body will be taken in procession from his private chapel to St. Peter's Basilica, where he'll lie in state. The International Monetary Fund warns President Trump's tariffs will lead to a worldwide slowdown. It said the US would be the hardest hit amongst advanced economies. More than 20 people are feared dead after gunmen opened fire on tourists in Indian-administered Kashmir. The International Monetary Fund has given a sobering assessment of the global economy, warning that the ongoing uncertainty over President Trump's tariff war will slow growth for many of the world's advanced economies. The IMF, a UN body, has downgraded US growth by nearly 1% in its quarterly report. JD Vance speaking earlier today. We will be back in a few moments with more on the run-up to Donald Trump's 100 days, testing the waters in Ohio and sampling public opinion there, around the world and across the UK. This is The World Today on BBC News. Now here, Downing Street says the UK Prime Minister does not believe that a transgender woman is a woman. Sir Keir Starmer's official spokesman was asked to clarify his position on the issue today, following the Supreme Court ruling last week that the term woman refers to someone's biological sex. 3 years ago, Sir Keir said that trans women were women. Here's our Deputy Political Editor, Vicky Young. Katrina Perry, thanks so much for being with us there in Ohio. Fascinating. And we're going to be moving across different parts of the US in the coming days. You're watching BBC News. Now, here, Gary Lineker has said his decision to leave Match of the Day was in part because he believed the BBC wanted him to go. His departure was announced last November, although he will host the FA Cup and World Cup coverage. Gary Lineker there talking to Amal Rajan. Let me just leave you with the latest from Rome and the images that we've been getting of Pope Francis as he lies in state. And tomorrow the Pope's body will be moved to St. Peter's Basilica, where the public will be able to pay their own respects as the Pope lies in state in an open coffin. Tonight there have been rosary prayers in St. Peter's Square, and there have been tributes from all over the world. Pilgrims and tourists also flocking to the Vatican to congregate in St. Peter's Square, and the funeral will be held on Saturday. It's expected that about 250,000 people could gather for that event. World leaders coming to pay their own respects for Pope Francis. And after this period of mourning, then, of course, the decision will be made from those key players, the bishops, the archbishops, on who the next pope will be to lead the global Catholic Church. These are the images from the heart of the Vatican, St. Peter's Square. We'll be back with more from Rome. This is BBC News. Thanks for being with us.
Hello. The weather's been pleasant enough across most